Hello cookies, this is your Improv Cook, always making something. Tonight I am using a recipe. I know, it's crazy. There is a bit of improvising going on. Got this recipe and it talks like about orange whole wheat breakfast bread with butter, bread flour, whole wheat flour, some milk, sugar, blah blah blah. And I have this other one, cinnamon raisin bread. So I'm doing a mix of the two, and I'm basically going to use half and half ratios of the whole grain flour to the white flour. And here with yeast, you also need to be clear about temperature. You cannot have your water too hot. This is 93 degrees. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of yeast. Two tablespoons of sugar. And then we're gonna let that sit for a few minutes, and if it's good yeast, because it's been in my fridge a while, it should get foamy and happy. 1.5 cup of each. So 1 level cup means use the flat edge of your knife, level it off. 1. Whoops, that's 1/3, not 1/4, not 1/2. So that's 1 2/3. Do the same for the whole grain wheat, which is rye. So I am improvising because now I need to add more water. An egg and butter. So that is butter, 2 tablespoons. 1 egg. I do need some salt in here at some point. Yeah, a whole teaspoon of salt, even though this is going to be a relatively sweet bread. Salt. I'm going to use orange extract. So I'm going off this orange whole wheat thing as an idea, and I'm going to put a teaspoon of that in here. So 1 teaspoon. And then I love cinnamon bread, and I love Penzies. This pie spice is a combination of cinnamon and other spices like cloves that would be in an apple pie, I believe. But I always err on the side of more herbs and spices. So this is what we got in our pan at this point. You can see that the yeast has become activated. So we've got some nice froth. It's going right in there. I'll get a scraper, scrape all that out. I'm gonna set it on the dough cycle, and I'm gonna go to bed. So next time you see this, hopefully this thing will be like poofed over. Ta-ta for now. 8 hours later, this is always the moment of truth. Lifting up the lid, seeing if we have a block turd of dough, or whether it's over the top, bubbling out. Burr, 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 burr. Huh, it's neither. It might look like hell, but it smells great. So we're gonna add the raisins, beat this and knead this back down, put it in a baking pan and let it rise again. Ta-ta! Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is add a little bit more flour to my kneading butcher block. Let's call it butcher block, but we've never butchered anything on here. So what I've got is some Trader Joe's golden raisins. And I'm just gonna put those out like that. And start to knead by hand. So flip it, use the palm, the base of your hand to just dig into that flour. Again, I have to be careful. This is, you can just feel that if this flour is wetter than a sponge, like a wrung out sponge, it's too wet. That might be why it did not rise. So I'm going to sprinkle some more flour on, push down with the heel of my hand, and try not to let it stick like that to my counter. We've got a non-stick loaf pan. Gonna spray a little bit on the bottom even though it's non-stick. Plop that baby in there, put a damp towel over it, and put it in a warm spot and let it rise for at least an hour. This is my cinnamon raisin bread made with the pie spice. I put it in this loaf pan this morning. I've come back after a day of errands and activity. I left it in a warm spot for 7 hours, probably 8. My tea towel stuck to it, so it looks really gross on the top. But we're going to see what happens when I put it into an oven at 350. We are 40 minutes in on the baking of the rye bread, rye and white flour with raisins. 40 minutes in. I don't really bake bread, so I'm not even sure how to test. That's how my toothpick comes out. It springs back. Kind of a bummer. I thought it would rise more. But that is 40 minutes at 350. And then we'll do one more once we have the bread cooled and open, sliced open so you can see the crumb, which is the inside texture of the bread. You going? Yes? So we've got our bread on the butcher block.
Wait, can we?
I turned that bread upside down. This loaf has been cooling for 15 minutes. I promised I would show you the crumb, and that is what it looks like. It's still warm on the inside. This bread probably could have baked longer. That was 40 minutes at 350, but let's give it a try. Great flavor, very moist, more the consistency of a muffin crossed with bread. So I'm sure we're going to eat it, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy it, and I hope you do too. Bye, cookies. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Always Making Something. Ta-ta!